Captain Kim Jae-ho stood at the observation deck of Earth Space Station Alpha, watching the stars. His weathered face showed the marks of his years in service. 20 years in the United Earth Forces had taught him many things, but nothing had prepared him for today. Today, humans would meet aliens for the first time. "Captain Kim, they're approaching," said Officer Moon, her voice steadied despite the excitement. "The Nilari ship will dock in 10 minutes. Kim nodded. "Is everything ready in the welcome hall?" "Yes, sir. President Lee and the United Earth Council are waiting. Security teams are in position." Kim straightened his blue uniform and checked his reflection in the glass. His short black hair was neatly combed, his medals aligned perfectly on his chest. These medals told stories of bravery during the Mars colonial conflicts, when Earth settlers had fought over water rights. Kim had saved hundreds of lives by leading rescue missions into dangerous territories. "Let's go meet our visitors," he said. The Nilari ship was unlike anything humans had built. It looked like flowing silver water frozen in space. No sharp edges, no visible engines, just smooth curves that seemed to bend light around them. When the docking tunnel connected, everyone held their breath. The inner door slid open, and the aliens walked through. Ambassador Trell was tall and thin. His skin was pale blue with faint patterns that seemed to shift. His forearms moved with precise grace, and his large eyes blinked sideways. Behind him came 6 other Nilari, each slightly different in color, but similar in their delicate build. "Welcome to Earth," President Lee said, stepping forward with an open palm, the new universal greeting they had agreed upon through earlier communications. Trell placed one of his 4 hands against the president's. "We thank you for your welcome. The Nilari Confederation is pleased to finally meet humanity face to face." The formal introductions continued as planned. Kim watched carefully, noting how the aliens moved. They seemed cautious, almost fragile in their movements. Their translator devices worked perfectly, converting their musical language into clear English. 3 days later, Kim found himself assigned as Earth's main liaison to the Nilari. He sat across from Ambassador Trell in the station's garden dome, surrounded by plants from Earth. "Your planet has so many different environments," Trell said, touching a rose petal gently, "and so many dangerous creatures, yet you survived and thrived." Kim smiled. "We adapted. Humans are good at facing challenges." Trell's head tilted slightly. "We have studied your history. It is troubling and fascinating. You fought so many wars among yourselves." "We did," Kim admitted, "but we learned from them. The Mars conflicts taught us that we needed to unite as one planet before reaching further into space. What interests me most," Trell said, his voice softer now, "are your stories of individual bravery. Your heroes who risked their lives for others. This concept is difficult for us to understand." Kim looked surprised. "Don't the Nilari have heroes?" Trell's skin patterns shifted to a deeper blue. The Nilari Confederation includes 7 species from different worlds. All of us evolved in environments with few predators. We developed intelligence and cooperation. But the concept of risking one's life intentionally. He paused. "It seems illogical." "Sometimes the logical choice isn't the right one," Kim said. The next week, the Nilari delegation requested to see historical records. Kim took them to the Global History Museum in New Beijing. They stood before displays showing firefighters running into burning buildings, soldiers shielding comrades from explosions, and ordinary citizens diving into dangerous waters to save strangers. "Your species voluntarily faces death?" Trell asked, his translator unable to hide his confusion. "For what purpose?" Kim stood before a famous photo of a rescue worker carrying a child from a collapsed building. "Because someone has to. But your survival instinct is strong," Kim finished. "But so does our instinct to protect others, especially those who cannot protect themselves." Another Nilari scientist named Vesh stepped forward. "We have observed no other species with this trait so strongly developed. It is fascinating from an evolutionary perspective." Kim smiled. My grandmother was a doctor during the Great Pandemic of 2031. She worked until she got sick herself. When I asked her why she didn't leave the hospital sooner, she said that courage isn't special, it's necessary. The aliens exchanged glances, their skin patterns rippling with what Kim had learned was their way of showing deep thought. 1 month after first contact, Kim took Ambassador Trell to Earth's surface. They visited Seoul, where cherry blossoms filled the parks with pink snow. They walked among humans who had quickly grown used to seeing aliens in their midst. Your people adapted to our presence very quickly, Trell observed. Humans are good at adapting, Kim said. It's how we survived. Their peaceful walk was interrupted by shouting. Ahead of them, at the edge of the Han River, a small child had fallen into the water. Without hesitation, a young woman jumped in after the child. The current was strong, but she swam powerfully, reaching the boy and holding him above water. Kim was already running toward the river bank, calling for help on his communicator. By the time they reached the edge, others had formed a human chain, extending out into the water to reach the woman and child. Trell watched in amazement as strangers linked arms, the last person grabbing the woman's hand just as her strength began to fail. Together, they pulled the woman and child to safety. The woman sat dripping and exhausted on the bank, accepting a blanket while the child was reunited with his frantic parents. "You could have died," Trell said to her, his translator conveying his disbelief. The woman looked confused at the alien statement. "He was drowning. I'm a good swimmer," as if that explained everything. That evening, in the Earth Nilari embassy, Trell called a meeting with his delegation. "I believe we have misunderstood something fundamental about humans," he said to his colleagues. "We thought their violent history made them dangerous, but their capacity for self-sacrifice makes them different from any species we have encountered." Vesh, the scientist, displayed data on a floating screen. Their biology shows high levels of stress hormones in dangerous situations, confirming they do feel fear, yet they override this response frequently. Another Nilari named Loon added, "Their entertainment constantly celebrates this behavior. Their highest honors are given to those who risk themselves for others." Trell's patterns shifted to a deep purple. The Confederation Council must know about this. It changes our assessment of humanity's potential role in galactic society. Kim didn't know about this meeting. He was in his apartment in the International District, looking at old family photos. His grandfather in a firefighter uniform, his mother standing before her settlement on Mars, his own graduation from the Space Academy. His communicator beeped with a message from Park Soo-jin, commander of Earth's Special Operations Division and an old friend. "The aliens seem nice," her message read. "Too nice, maybe. No species gets to space without overcoming challenges. What challenges shape them, I wonder? And why are they so interested in our bravery?" Kim hadn't considered this. The Nilari had been open about their technology, their 7-species confederation, their peaceful expansion through the stars. But they had shared little about threats or dangers in the galaxy. He wrote back, "Good questions. I'll try to learn more." Kim looked out his window at the night sky. Somewhere up there, the Nilari ship hovered in orbit. First contact had gone well. Earth was no longer alone in the universe. But Park's questions remained in his mind as he prepared for bed. Why were the Nilari so fascinated by human courage? What did they know that humans didn't? He would soon find out. The stars held more than just new friends. They held dangers beyond human imagination. Dangers that would test the very quality the Nilari found so fascinating. And when that test came, humanity would deliver beyond anyone's belief. 6 months had passed since the Nilari made first contact with Earth. Humans and aliens had shared knowledge, culture, and technology. The Nilari taught humans about faster-than-light travel. Humans taught the Nilari about art, music, and literature. Captain Kim Jae-ho now worked full-time as the head of the Earth-Nilari Relations Office. He had visited the Nilari ship many times and had even traveled to their nearest colony on a planet orbiting Proxima Centauri, the closest star to Earth's sun. It was a normal Tuesday morning when everything changed. Kim was in his office reviewing reports when his screen flashed red. An emergency call from Ambassador Trell. Captain Kim. Trell's voice sounded different. Strained. The council requests your presence immediately. What's happened? Kim asked, already standing up. Something terrible. Please come to the ship. 1 hour later, Kim sat in the Nellari Council chamber aboard their ship. Around him were not just Trell and his team, but high-ranking Nellari officials who had arrived through an emergency jump. Their skin patterns flashed with colors Kim had never seen before, dark reds and blacks that he guessed meant fear. Show him, said the Nellari High Counselor, an elder named Myth whose skin was almost white with age. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed the Nellari colony on Proxima Centauri b. But instead of the beautiful settlement Kim had visited, he saw destruction. Buildings were broken, and moving through them were strange, shifting shapes that looked like black smoke with sparks of purple light. This transmission came 3 hours ago, Trell explained. Then all communication stopped. What are those things? Kim asked, pointing at the smoke-like creatures. The High Counselor's patterns darkened further. We call them the Void Swarm. They are energy-based life forms that consume organic matter. They travel through space in hibernation until they find populated worlds. You've encountered them before? Kim asked. 3 times in our history, Myth said. Each time, we evacuated who we could and abandoned the colony. Kim stared at the alien leader. You just left. We had no choice, Trell said softly. The swarm cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be stopped with our weapons. They consume everything in their path. How many people were at that colony? Kim demanded. 12,000 colonists, Trell answered, plus a defense force of 800. Kim stood up so quickly his chair fell backward. And you're just writing them off. Have you sent rescue ships? The Nellari looked at each other, skin patterns shifting uncomfortably. Captain Kim, Myth said carefully, you must understand. The Void Swarm destroys everything. Our military ships retreated after losing half their numbers in the first attack. Anyone still on the planet is already dead. You don't know that, Kim said. There could be survivors hiding. People waiting for help. It would be a suicide mission to find out, another counselor stated plainly. Kim looked around the room, suddenly understanding something about the Nellari that he had missed before. Your species physically can't do it, can you? You can't overcome your survival instinct to go back there. The room fell silent. Then Trell spoke. This is why we were so fascinated by human bravery, Captain Kim. In all the species we have met across the stars, none have your ability to face certain death for the sake of others. It is not in our biology. Kim took a deep breath. I need to speak with my government. President Lee sat with the United Earth Council as they watched the same hologram. Kim had brought Trell to explain the situation. How fast do these creatures move? Asked General Cho, head of Earth's defense forces. They will consume the entire colony within days, Trell said. Then they will spread across the planet over the next few months. Can they reach Earth? Someone asked. Not for many years. They travel slowly between stars, but eventually, yes. Commander Park Soo-jin, who had been silent until now, stood up. So we either fight them there, or we fight them here later. When they're stronger. The room filled with murmurs of agreement. President Lee raised her hand for silence. Ambassador Trell, if we were to send rescue ships, what support could the Nellari provide? Trell seemed surprised by the question. You would go there, knowing what awaits you. We would try to save those people, Lee said simply. We can provide star maps, information about the swarm's behavior, and technology to enhance your ships, Trell said. But our military will not return. I am sorry. Lee nodded, then turned to General Cho. Prepare our best ships. We need volunteers only. Kim stepped forward. Madam President, I volunteer to lead the mission. As do I. Commander Park said. Lee looked at them both. I expected nothing less from either of you. News spread quickly through Earth's military and civilian channels. The United Earth government needed volunteers for a dangerous rescue mission to save an alien colony. They needed soldiers, medics, pilots, and engineers. They asked for 300 volunteers. 8,000 came forward in the first day. Kim and Park worked with General Cho to select the best team. They needed people with cool heads and warm hearts. People who would not panic when facing the unknown. Lee Ta-won, a demolitions expert famous for his creative solutions in tight spots, joined immediately. Someone needs to blow things up, he said with a grin that hid his nervousness. Might as well be me. Choi Han-gil, a brilliant scientist who studied alien biology, insisted on coming. If these are energy-based life forms, we need to understand how they work to fight them, she argued. Kang Do-yeon, one of Earth's best pilots, volunteered to lead the air support team. Fast in, fast out, she said during planning. I'll get our people wherever they need to go. In the end, they selected 1,200 volunteers. They called themselves the Vanguard Battalion. Their mission: reach Proxima Centauri b, find survivors, and bring them home. 5 Earth ships prepared for departure. The Nilari provided faster-than-light drives that would get them to Proxima Centauri in just 2 days instead of years. The night before launch, Kim stood in the observation deck of Space Station Alpha, looking out at the ships. Trell joined him. Your people continue to surprise me, the alien said. So many volunteers for a mission that might end in death. That's the thing about humans, Kim said. We don't accept might as a reason not to try. The Void Swarm has existed for thousands of years, Trell said. No species has ever defeated them. They only grow stronger with each world they consume. Well, they haven't met humans yet, Kim replied with a small smile. What makes you think you can succeed where others have failed? Trell asked, genuinely curious. Kim thought about his grandfather running into burning buildings, about his mother establishing one of the first Mars colonies, about the woman jumping into the river to save a child she didn't know. Because when something matters enough, humans find a way, he answered. We don't know how to give up when lives are at stake. Trell's skin patterns shifted to a color Kim had never seen before, a gentle gold that seemed to glow from within. Then perhaps, the alien said quietly, the galaxy has been waiting for humanity all along. The next morning, the 5 ships of the Vanguard Battalion launched from Earth. Crowds gathered to watch them go, waving flags and cheering. Aboard the lead ship, Kim addressed his team. I won't lie to you. This mission is dangerous. We're facing something unknown. But there are 12,000 people who need our help. We're going to find the survivors and bring them home. And if there are no survivors? Someone asked. Commander Park stepped forward. Then we make sure the Void Swarm learns that humanity doesn't take kindly to threats against any intelligent life, human or alien. The ships activated their Nilari-enhanced drives. In a flash of bright light, they vanished from Earth's orbit, heading toward humanity's first battle among the stars. Behind them, the Nilari watched with wonder and the first small spark of something new. Hope. The 5 human ships exited light speed near Proxima Centauri b. The planet looked peaceful from space. Blue oceans, green lands, and white clouds. But Captain Kim Jae-ho knew better. Somewhere on that beautiful world, death was spreading. Scan for Nilari ships. Kim ordered from the bridge of the lead vessel, _horizon_. 2 Nilari military ships detected, reported Officer Moon. They're in high orbit, staying far from the planet. Commander Park Soo-jin stood beside Kim, studying the tactical display. They're just watching, while their people die down there. Remember, they can't help it, Kim said quietly. Their biology won't let them risk their lives. Open a channel to the Nilari ships, Park ordered. A Nilari admiral appeared on screen. His skin patterns showed dark colors of distress. "This is Admiral Vex of the Nilari Defense Force," he said. "Humans, you must not approach the planet. The Void Swarm will destroy you." "We're here to rescue survivors," Kim replied. "Are your scanners detecting any life signs at the colony?" The Admiral hesitated. "Yes, approximately 4,000 colonists remain alive in the central habitat dome, but the swarm surrounds them. The dome shields are failing." 4,000, Park exclaimed. "And you are going to leave them?" The Admiral's patterns darkened further. "We cannot help them. It is beyond our ability." "Well, it's not beyond ours," Kim said firmly. "We're going in. Any information you can share about the swarm's movements would be helpful." After a pause, the Admiral nodded. "We will transmit all our sensor data to you, and thank you." The human ships descended toward the planet. From above, they could see the Void Swarm, like a black storm spreading across the land. At the center of the storm was the colony, its protective dome glowing faintly. Kim gathered his team leaders for a final briefing. "The plan is simple," he said, pointing to a holographic map. "We create a corridor through the swarm to reach the dome. Then we evacuate as many survivors as possible." Lee Ta-1, the demolitions expert, stepped forward. "My team will deploy the quantum disruptors at these points." He indicated locations on the map. "Based on the Nilari data, these devices should temporarily disperse the swarm creatures." "How temporary?" Park asked. "Minutes, maybe less," Lee admitted. "We'll need to work fast." Choi Han-gil, the scientist, spoke next. "My team has adapted our shields to match the energy signature of the dome. This should let us connect directly to it without letting the swarm in." Kang Do-yeon, the pilot leader, completed the plan. "My fighters will provide cover during the evacuation. We'll keep the swarm distracted and away from the transports." Kim looked at each of them. "This won't be easy. The Nilari have never defeated these creatures, but we're not here to defeat them. We're here to save lives." "What about our own lives?" someone asked. The room fell silent. Everyone knew the risks. "I can't promise we'll all make it back," Kim said honestly. "But I can promise this. No one gets left behind. Not the Nilari, and not any of us." From the Nilari ships in orbit, Admiral Vex and his crew watched in amazement as the human vessels descended directly toward the danger. "They're actually doing it," Vex said in disbelief. "They know they might die, yet they go anyway." His second-in-command's patterns shifted nervously. "I don't understand. It's not logical." "Perhaps there is something beyond logic," Vex replied, his eyes fixed on the screens. The battle began the moment the human ships entered the atmosphere. The Void Swarm sensed them immediately, black smoke-like tendrils reaching up toward the vessels. Kang Do-yeon led her fighter squadron ahead of the main ships, firing disruptors. She announced over the comm. Beams of blue light shot from the small fighters, cutting through the black mass below. Where the beams hit, the swarm creatures scattered temporarily, creating small clear areas. "It's working," Kang called. "But they recover quickly. Keep firing." On the ground, Lee and his team prepared to land. Their smaller ship dove through the gaps created by the fighters. "This is Team Ground," Lee reported. "We're going in to place the disruptors. Cover us." Kim watched from the _horizon_ as the first team landed. "All ships, maintain formation. Be ready to receive evacuees once the corridor is established." Lee's team worked rapidly on the ground. The Void Swarm creatures surged around them, held back only by portable shield generators. Each person carried a quantum disruptor, a device that would create an energy field harmful to the swarm. "First disruptor in place," Lee called, his voice tense. "Moving to position 2. On the screens, Kim and Park watched as one team member's shield failed. Before anyone could reach him, black tendrils wrapped around the soldier. His scream cut off abruptly as he vanished into the darkness. "Man down," Lee reported, his voice steady despite the horror. Continuing mission. Inside the colony dome, the Nilari survivors huddled together. They could see the human ships through the transparent sections of the dome. Many couldn't believe what they were seeing. "They came for us," a young Nilari asked her parent. "But why would they risk their lives?" The parent had no answer. Lee's team managed to place 3 disruptors before losing another member. When activated, the devices created a narrow path through the swarm, a corridor of clear space leading to the colony dome. "Corridor established," Lee reported. "But we've lost 2 people and the corridor won't last long. Maybe 20 minutes. "That's our window," Kim decided. "All evacuation ships, move in now. Dr. Choi, connect to the dome as soon as you reach it." 3 large transport ships descended through the corridor, landing near the dome. Choi and her team rushed out, carrying equipment to create a sealed passageway between the ships and the dome. "Connection established," Choi reported minutes later. "We're ready to receive evacuees." Inside the dome, the Nilari colonists moved toward the human ships. Some hesitated, afraid to leave the safety of their home. "We don't have time," Park urged over the communication system. "The corridor won't last. Everyone must board now." Above them, Kang's fighters battled to keep the swarm away from the corridor. 2 fighters had already been lost, consumed by the black tendrils when they flew too close. "The swarm is adapting to our weapons," Kang reported, disruptor effectiveness dropping. "How long can you hold them?" Kim asked. "Maybe 10 more minutes." "No more." Kim made a quick decision. All evacuees must be loaded in the next 8 minutes. Not 1 minute more. The evacuation proceeded rapidly. The Nilari, despite their fear, moved with surprising speed once they understood the humans were risking their lives to save them. But as the last group was boarding, disaster struck. The quantum disruptors began to fail earlier than expected. The corridor started to close as the swarm pushed back in. "Final group still not aboard," Choi reported from the ground. "About 200 colonists still in the dome, including children." "The corridor is collapsing," Lee warned. "We're out of time." Kim faced the hardest decision of his life. If the last transport waited for everyone, they might all be lost. But leaving anyone behind wasn't an option either. "Kang," he called to the fighter leader. "We need more time." "Understood," came her calm reply. "Squadron, new mission. We're going to hit the swarm directly. Draw them away from the corridor." "That's suicide," Park whispered beside Kim. "It's necessary," Kim replied, his heart heavy. They watched as Kang led her remaining fighters directly into the densest part of the swarm. The small ships fired continuously, aggravating the creatures and drawing them away from the evacuation site. One by one, the fighters disappeared into the black mass. But their sacrifice worked. The corridors stayed open just long enough. "Last colonists aboard," Choi reported. "All ships ready for departure." "All ships, take off immediately," Kim ordered. "Kang, report status." There was no response from the fighter leader. "Kang, report." Kim called again. Finally, her voice came through, broken by static. "Engine, failing. Can't make it back." "We'll send a rescue," Kim began. "No time," Kang interrupted. "Get everyone out. I'll keep them busy." On the tactical display, they watched as Kang's damaged fighter flew deeper into the swarm. "What is she doing?" a Nilari officer who had joined them on the bridge asked. "She's giving us time to escape," Park answered, her voice tight with emotion. Moments later, a bright explosion lit up the darkness as Kang detonated her fighter's power core manually, taking a large section of the swarm with her. "All ships clear," Officer Moon reported, her eyes wet with tears. "Returning to orbit." As the ships climbed away from the planet, the Nilari officer turned to Kim. "Why would she do that? Why would any of you do this for us?" Kim looked at the officer, then at the scared but grateful Nilari evacuees filling the ship's halls. "Because that's what humans do," he said simply. "We don't leave people behind. Any people." The journey back to Earth was quiet. The 5 human ships had left Proxima Centauri B with only 4 returning. The _Horizon_ carried Captain Kim Jae-ho, Commander Park Soo-jin, and hundreds of human survivors. It also carried over 1,000 Nilari colonists. In the medical bay, Dr. Choi Han-gil worked tirelessly to treat both human and alien injured. Lee Ta-won sat on a bed, his arm wrapped in bandages where the void swarm had touched him briefly. "Will the arm heal?" Kim asked as he entered the room. Choi nodded. "Yes, but the scars will remain." The swarm's energy affected his cells at a basic level. Lee managed a smile. "A small price to pay, Captain. We saved over 3,000 people." Kim placed a hand on Lee's good shoulder. "Yes, we did. But we lost 853 of our own." The number weighed heavily on Kim's heart. More than half the Vanguard battalion was gone, including Kang Do-yeon and her entire fighter squadron. They had given their lives so others could live. A young Nilari child approached them. Her skin patterns shifted with soft blues and greens. "You are the leader?" she asked Kim. "One of them," Kim replied with a gentle smile. "My parent says you came to save us when your own people were safe. Why would you do this?" Kim knelt down to meet the child's eyes. "Because it was right. All life is precious, no matter what planet you come from." The child seemed to consider this. "Our teachers said your species fights many wars, that humans are dangerous." "We can be," Kim admitted. "But we also build, create, and save. Sometimes the same courage that makes us fight also makes us protect." The child's patterns shifted to a golden color. "I want to be brave like humans. Can you teach me?" Kim felt a lump in his throat. "I think you're already learning." Admiral Vex's Nilari ship traveled alongside the human vessels. He had requested to join them for the journey to Earth, wanting to report directly to his government about what he had witnessed. On the _Horizons_ bridge, Vex stood with Kim and Park, watching the stars streak by. "In all our recorded history," the Admiral said, "we have never seen anything like what your people did. The Confederation has always believed that intelligent life naturally values self-preservation above all else." "Humans are complicated," Park replied. "We do value our lives, but we also value meaning and purpose." "Your pilot, Kang, she knew she would die?" Vex asked. Kim nodded. "She knew, but she chose to give her life so others could live." "We have a saying," Park added. "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." "But the Nilari weren't your friends," Vex pointed out. "You had just met us." "That's the thing about humans," Kim said. "We can decide to treat strangers as friends pretty quickly." The ships arrived at Earth to a hero's welcome. Crowds gathered at viewing areas around Space Station Alpha. News broadcasts showed the returning ships and the alien refugees they had saved. President Lee met them at the docking bay, her face solemn but proud. "Captain Kim, Commander Park, on behalf of all humanity, I thank you and your brave team for showing the best of what humans can be." She turned to Admiral Vex. "And to our Nilari friends, know that Earth welcomes you for as long as you need to stay." The Nilari survivors looked around in wonder. Many had never expected to leave their colony, let alone visit another inhabited world. Kim watched as humans came forward with blankets, food, and medical supplies for the aliens. No one complained about the resources being used. No one questioned whether the mission had been worth the cost. That night, memorial services were held across Earth for the 853 humans who had given their lives. Their names scrolled on public screens. Their families received medals of honor. Kang Do-yeon's parents stood tall as they accepted their daughter's medal, tears streaming down their faces. "She always wanted to do something that mattered," her father told reporters. And she did. 2 weeks later, the Nilari High Council arrived at Earth. They requested a formal meeting with Earth's leaders. In the grand chamber of the United Earth Government building, humans and aliens gathered. The mood was solemn but hopeful. High Counselor Myth stepped forward, his ancient white skin now showing touches of gold. a color Kim had come to recognize as deep respect. People of Earth, Myth began, his translator conveying his musical language. We came to your world 6 months ago to learn about you. We found a species with a violent past and an uncertain future. We wondered if you were ready to join the wider galactic community. The old alien paused, looking around the room. We were wrong to doubt you. When our people faced extinction, yours answered with courage beyond our understanding. You sacrificed your lives for people you barely knew, asking nothing in return. Kim sat beside Park, listening carefully. We have studied your history more deeply now, Myth continued. From your ancient warriors who died protecting their homes, to your firefighters who run into burning buildings, to your doctors who risk infection to heal others. This quality, this willingness to face death for a greater good, is rare in the galaxy, perhaps unique. President Lee stood to address the council. What happened at Proxima Centauri was a tragedy. We mourn our dead alongside yours, but we would make the same choice again. That is precisely why the Confederation needs humanity, Myth said. The Void Swarm has existed for thousands of years. They have consumed dozens of worlds. No species has found the courage to truly stand against them, until now. Admiral Vex stepped forward. I witnessed your fighters fly directly into the swarm to save others. I saw your soldiers place disruptors knowing they might not return. This changed me. The Admiral's skin rippled with new colors. I have started training, learning to overcome my instinct for self-preservation. Others in our military are doing the same. We wish to learn bravery from humans. Kim looked around in surprise. This was unexpected. Myth nodded. The Confederation proposes a new alliance. We offer technology, knowledge of the stars, and resources. In return, we ask humanity to teach us courage. President Lee looked at her advisors, then back to the Nilari. We accept your alliance, and we will gladly share what we can. But courage isn't something easily taught. It grows through actions and choices. Then we will learn by doing, Vex said firmly. Starting now. 3 months later, a new installation was completed in orbit around Earth. The Earth Nilari Defense Academy accepted its first class of students, half human, half Nilari. Kim, now Admiral Kim, stood before them on opening day. You're here to learn from each other, he told the mixed group. Humans will learn Nilari science and technology. Nilari will learn human tactics and courage. Commander Park, standing beside him, added, but remember this, true courage isn't about not feeling fear. It's about feeling fear and acting anyway, because something matters more than your own safety. Among the Nilari students was a familiar face, the young child Kim had met on the journey back to Earth. She had convinced her parent to become one of the instructors at the academy. My name is Lena, she told Kim when they met again. I have been practicing being brave. Have you? Kim smiled. How? I stood up for another child who was being teased. I was scared, but I did it anyway. Kim knelt down, just as he had on the ship. That's exactly what courage is, Lena. 6 months after the rescue mission, a monument was unveiled on Earth. It bore the names of all 853 humans who had given their lives at Proxima Centauri b. Beside it stood a plaque with words from Admiral Kim. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's being afraid and doing what's right anyway. Humanity doesn't have a monopoly on bravery. We just never forgot how important it is. The Void Swarm would return many times over the following years, but they no longer found easy prey. When they came, they faced a united front of humans and aliens standing together. During one battle, a Nilari ship placed itself between the swarm and a damaged human vessel. The captain's final words were recorded for history. We learned from the best. No one gets left behind. In the end, humanity's greatest gift to the stars wasn't technology or art or culture. It was courage. And across the galaxy, that gift spread from world to world, changing everything.